him and spread his feet wider. Raja's wheel was turning faster now, biting into the muddy water, propelling her forward. Thick black smoke and showers of sparks poured from her twin stacks, and her exhausts were thumping loud again. Chunks of ice, some of them as big as river barges, slammed into the Raja's bow and sides, and the little boat shuddered and recoiled under the impact. Up in the wheelhouse, Buell blasted the whistle, defying the river to do its worst. Raja charged ahead, her paddles churning, shouldering aside ice as she rammed through coffee-colored water, the sandbar getting closer with every revolution of the wheel.
"Life is just one big wheel,"
Fletcher recalled Warden Nathaniel K. Boswell saying to him just before he was taken under escort from the newly opened Wyoming Territorial Prison in Laramie 2 weeks before.
"One day you're on top of the world, then the wheel turns and you're at the bottom again. That's where you are, Fletcher, at the bottom, and you can't get any lower."
The man had not gone into details about why Fletcher had served only a month of his 20-year sentence before he was dragged from his cell and told he was being taken under Army escort to Lexington, there to meet a man he didn't know.
"This man has a proposition for you, Fletcher," Boswell had said. "I'm told there could be a great deal of danger involved, but I think you'd be very wise to take it. If it was up to me, I'd pin you up forever, Fletcher. You and all your kind, paid killers and plunderers. But President Grant himself has signed the order for your temporary release, and I can't ignore that kind of authority."
The warden nodded to the guards who flanked Fletcher.
"Take him out of my sight until his Army escort arrives."
As Fletcher was shuffling from the man's office, his heavy leg irons clanking, Boswell had called out after him,
"Do us all a favor, Fletcher. Get yourself killed."
"A man could get killed this way, Major," Lieutenant Simpson yelled to Fletcher above the roar of Raja's engines and her shrieking whistle, bringing him back to the present. "I've never had much love for boats." 30 seconds later, Raja hit the sandbar hard. She rammed through half the bar's width and came to a jolting stop. Her wheel was still churning, throwing up high fountains of muddy water, black drops spattering Fletcher and the soldiers far forward on the hurricane deck. Buell backed his boat off, readying Raja for another try. It seemed that more ice was banging against her hull, driven by raging, ugly water. And now, adding to everyone's misery, sleet began to fall, driven by a rising wind from the north. Raja charged the sandbar again, backed off, charged a second time, then a third, and a fourth. Finally, her straining hull plates groaning, threatening any minute to tear away from their rivets, the boat rammed through the bar. Raja brushed aside the white trunk of a dead dogwood tree that angled up from the sand, its branches spread wide like thin, surrendering arms. And, as she cleared the bar, fussily straightened her bow like an old dowager straightening her bonnet. Then, gathering around her what was left of her shabby, rickety dignity, she floated into calmer water. Buell nosed his battered craft into a Lexington wharf, vented Raja's steam, and tied her up. As Buell ran out the gangplank for the passengers, mulatto dock workers were already scrambling on board to unload her cargo, and the captain, somber, thin, and bearded, left the wheelhouse to oversee the operation. Lieutenant Simpson turned to Fletcher, his eyes miserable. "Major, I must—" The young officer stumbled, trying to find the words, and Fletcher smiled. "You have a duty to do, Lieutenant. Best you do it." Relieved, Simpson nodded and turned to Corporal Burke. "The shackles, Corporal."
"There's no need for that."
Every head swiveled toward the tall man who had just stepped up onto the hurricane deck. He wore a black overcoat with an astrakhan collar, his eyes shaded by the brim of his top hat. The man took a step toward Simpson.
"I am Senator Stark, and I will take custody of the prisoner."
A sleet flurry scattered wet drops between Stark and Fletcher and the others. Through this shifting gray curtain, a man as tall as Stark, but dressed in a wide-brimmed hat and sheepskin mackinaw, a red woolen scarf wrapped around his neck, stepped to the senator's side. The man's cold eyes swept the green young soldiers, dismissed them as unimportant and irrelevant, then came to rest on Fletcher.
"Been a long time, Buck," he said, without friendliness.